Welcome into Pressbox Live. I'm Stan the Fan Charles from Pressbox and PressboxOnline.com. With me on these Thursday nights, but tonight it's a Wednesday night soiree into the world of sports, is Gary Stein, my good friend. Gary, how are you, my friend?
Doing great, Stanley. One of our favorite people going to join us in a few minutes, so we're all good to go.
And he's got that great smile on his face that he always had during his tenure at Towson University. But first, I've got to tell you that in addition to the Costas Inn, we are brought to you by AJ Michaels. That's right. Expert and award-winning AJ Michaels Heating, AC, Plumbing, and Home Performance will improve your home's energy efficiency and comfort levels. The AC season is upon us, and there are new rebates and discounts available. More at ajmichaels.com. And as Gary alluded to, we do have our old friend Rob Ambrose on with us, who had a really good run at Towson University from 2009 as head coach to 2020 through the 22 season. Rob also played his college football at Towson University, and was also an assistant. You were an assistant to Gordy? Were you an assistant to Gordy Combs?
I was. I got my last year that I played. I got hurt in the spring, Gordy's first spring.
Okay.
I got hurt in the spring and became a student assistant in the fall, thanks to him. And well, the rest is evidently in Wikipedia.
Now, it certainly is. Now, so that means you were recruited by Phil Albert, right?
I was, and specifically Jay Robinson.
Okay, but
you were a successful coach there in Calvert Hall.
Yeah, you are only one of four men to have that job, and you had such a run there from your college playing days. You still fond for the university?
Oh wow! Well, hold on. Now
I'll ask you a loaded question right off the bat.
There is a guy. There are five.
You were
now.
number 4. Pete's number 5, right?
And I could not. I mean, truth be told, I can't root harder for Pete. Really.
Yeah.
I had the opportunity to meet him once at one of those Coach of the Year things, the AFCA, and just seemed like a genuine guy. Clearly a good football coach, got a great record, wins wherever he goes. So, I can't do anything but, and any of the alums that see this, I hope the hell they root harder, just harder. You know what I mean? This was going to happen. Eventually there was going to be somebody who was not a Towson guy who became head football coach. And whether it's one of us or not one of us, in the end, he's one of us. And for those who've lived through this, rooting against any head coach is not beneficial for any program ever.
It's not, more importantly, it's not beneficial for your headspace, and that. It's not healthy.
Well, I know the business. I know the business. Be a little shock. There's a little bit of shock in the, I gave up a lot to stay.
Yeah.
Because I believed in town. I believed in the message that we preached about the things that we were teaching that were bigger and more important, and what was truly important in life. And it wasn't fame and fortune. It was helping people and doing things the right way and trying to take guys who walk in the door who think they know everything and get them on the right path and confident in themselves to go take on the world and do something that they love and make a difference in the world. There were times when I could have left, and I felt like if we left, it might have fallen down. It wasn't really sturdy enough to stay.
Yeah.
And then there were times that we stayed, there are times I did stay for my family, but there are times that we stayed because I watch guys jump from job to job, and I can't keep preaching when I'm preaching if I'm one of those guys. And as my wife said, I would probably have never, as I grew through this, I probably would never have left, because if I took another head coaching job, I can't guarantee the guys I work with are going to get a job. I can't. Every job's different. And every single dude that worked for me, I love them. I really do. The sacrifices they've made for the benefit of those young men in the institution in which I grew up in, I love every single one of those guys. And she said, you would have never left them. The school had to make you leave.
Yeah.
And that's probably true. So my mother and my wife have a hard time with the donors that are calling, they're asking for money, and I'll say they're probably going to give money. We'll give money back to the schools. My wife says it's awful hard to give money to somebody who so unceremoniously fired you or let you go, so to speak. And I get that.
Yeah.
But this is my home. It's my home, and I rooted for him when I left the first time to go be the head coach at Catholic, I rooted for him for the decade or so I was gone. I was the biggest cheerleader while I was here, and I'll continue to be in the future.
Before I turn you over to Gary for a couple of questions, I just want to ask you, aside from the coaching of the kids, what will you miss most during this year that you're sorting out what you want to do with your next chapter? Is it that ability to do good by helping others? Is that, I know it's a sort of a corny question,
No,
but
it's okay.
what will you miss the most?
I've been informed recently by my 19-year-old son that I'm very corny. So no, don't worry about it.
Welcome to the club, Rob.
Honestly, let's just start with the basics of why you did. Like, I agreed to do this job a very long time ago, knowing I was not going to get paid any money. It is always the kids.
Yeah.
That's the only good thing about the job. Like, seriously, I have fun with the X's and O's of the game.
Yeah.
I appreciate the strategy of it, and I really do. But the things that are taught through the game of football to those kids and watching them grow, that's the biggest. That's the heart work. I know I have to take care of my family and coach football. That's it. I don't have to be a head coach. I just know it's a calling. So I got into it for those reasons. I'll stay into it for those reasons. At what level, I don't know, but most definitely, that honestly, the higher education is a pretty tough gig these days. It's a pretty volatile situation in a multitude of ways. And I'm going to say, from sitting back, just looking at it, experience of managing the incredibly changing seas that are higher education and the athletics that go along with it. It's going to be a challenge for anybody doing that job. And
Yeah,
God bless the ones who have no experience and are just walking into this, because they're in for a ride.
yeah.
Rob, I got so many questions for you. So I may do more than 2 in a row. But first question is this. Everybody's got a body clock. Everybody's got their circadian rhythm. When you go to sleep, when you wake up, your thing, right? So in your world, okay, you, for the last 30 years, your circadian rhythm has been telling you something different than it's telling you today. And that is, you should be getting ready for football season. You should be talking to your players. You should be talking to your coaches, devising your plays. You got a week to go until practice starts, etc. So the question is, how are you doing?
Well, you're right that I realize I have been running on a clock that's running a sprint that is a marathon on the same clock every day of my life for, you had to point out all those years. Yes, a lot of years. And usually we're at the beach first week of July, maybe second week of July, and we're there for a week with our friends. We stay in North Carolina. It's great. Been doing it for years. And but from before either one of us had any kids to 5 kids in between the 2 families, and all the kids are now grown up. Every year at that time, about Thursday of that week, Thursday night of that week, if not Thursday, definitely Friday at the beach, she's just looking at me like, "You're gone already, aren't you?" And she looked at me this week and she goes, "So how's it feel?" And I go, "I don't know. It feels like I've got to go home and play golf on Tuesday. I don't know. Like, it's weird." It's honestly, and first of all, in sitting back and doing this for so long and never even considering what you were doing, I'm thoroughly amazed that I did that. And that anyone that does what we do for a living, like, only the people that do what we do for a living, or at least are around as much as you guys, understand what I'm saying. But living 365 days a year like that is kind of insane. And it's refreshing to breathe. It's not like I don't want to go back and do it, but it's refreshing to take a breath and go, "Oh, let's catch a breath for a little bit." That's pretty good. Yes, I've been presented with opportunities in the fall that I've never even considered. Somebody asked me to play in a golf tournament in the fall. I thought that was something that happened in a foreign country. I don't really understand what that means. Just things like that. My wife said, at the end of August, maybe mid-September, so-and-so wants us to come down to the beach. And I'm going, "Huh? What? Oh, okay. Well, I guess that's what people do." So, it's Garrett. It's incredibly different. Not something I plan on getting used to. She told me, "Well, yes, I've been a head coach for a while, and while I did make a nice little paycheck there, No, it's not like what Locks gets down the road, or it's not like not anything. So I still have to work. I have another 10 plus years. I got to put some money on the table for that.
Gotcha.
So I'll get out of this rhythm real fast. Get back to the old ways.
Rob, it's interesting. You said in the open that, every coach knows that eventually this day is going to come, right? One way or the other. But Rob, I got to tell you, if you look back on your career, I don't know if it's 30 or not, it's around 30. You kind of called the shots when you left everywhere else. So my point is, it took 30 years before you finally felt something like this. And that's pretty good, actually. That's a nice run. But I got to just go back and ask, if you don't mind, what did it actually feel like when they told you that they were not going to renew?
30 years. And you're right. I actually jokingly said to a couple of buddies that I talked to this summer, that there was one point, I guess, somewhere along the way that I thought I was going to hold this beast at bay, that I was going to be one of the rare guys that actually had the opportunity to do that. And, but in truth, I'm glad I didn't. Really. Everything for its own season, I think we did good work there. I think we did good work that will last forever. I think that we have done things that will keep our names in people's mouths nationally. And we will always have an opportunity to say to ourselves, we can be this thing if we want to. We can, if we invest in ourselves, we can do this. And I'm excited that exists. I'm excited that will be in the history books. And I'm excited for the kids that went through all that and enjoyed such a great experience. Both the kids that played and the number of emails that I get from random people who went to Towson, or some guy who dated a girl who went to Towson, and she brought him back for the weekends, and he went to all the games. He's like, I'm a Towson fan. I didn't go to your school. Like, those are the things that you never thought about that could be really cool. It's a possibility, and yet you can't prepare for it, especially when you're a head guy. Like when you're an assistant, you're on the road. You're talking to your other assistant friends all the time. I had my group of guys too. Locks was one of them. Chris White down in Memphis now. We had a bunch of guys that were our crew, and we kept in touch, and we had big networks and stuff like that. And as you get, if you're a head coach, especially if you're a head coach at the same place for a very long period of time, you do that a lot less, because you're really just end up you're not invested in your next job. You're invested in these kids in this job. And if I did one thing poorly over the last 14 years, it was probably networking.
Interesting.
Rob, let me ask you a question. Your first couple of years were the first 2 seasons were dismal. From that point on, you were about 18 games over 500 for the rest of your time at Towson. Do you think this was as much a football decision or a culture decision that we've got that Steve, and I'm not asking you to speak for him, but do you think it had more to do with the fact that Towson football isn't really bigger than it was? I think we got a frozen Rob Ambrose there.
I think you're right, Stanley.
Yeah. So
Oh,
we'll hope that he can come back on. It's too bad.
Stan,
We've done these for what, like 3.5 years? We've never had one like that. We've
I
had
think
a
we've done it
couple.
for longer than 3.5 years.
Yeah.
Stan, I just want to say in general, not often do you get to talk to a head coach, a former head coach, put it that way, about his dismissal.
Yep.
This is really a fascinating topic when you think about it.
Yeah.
Because people lose their jobs every day, but it's not public.
Right.
The way this guy did. I just think it's
not.
really
He's not a plumber, and Rob is making it back on.
right.
And we'll continue our interview. I'll tell you what, this is a good time. Rob, if you can hear us, you're muted. Let me get back to that question after I say a couple words about the Costa sin, okay? And the question really was it as much an X's and O's football thing, or was it that Steve's vision is that this thing can be bigger in some other way that you weren't able to get it to be? And we'll talk about that in just a second. The Costa sin is located at 4100 North Point Boulevard. They've been there for over 50 years at the same location. And if you're looking for a place to try for the first time, you might have a checklist like, is the food quality? Is the service quality? Well, those are both big check marks. Then you get to things like, can you get steamed crabs in season or out of season? That's a big check too at the Costas Inn. So for whatever your dining needs are, go to the Costas Inn, 4100 North Point Boulevard. Check out their website for the menu. And if you do want steamed crabs this summer, call ahead at 410-477-1975 to reserve the type of crabs, price point you want, and size you want. Costas Inn. We return to our interview with Rob Ambrose. And Rob, my question, I hope it wasn't too long-winded that it played tricks with your head. Do you think about that at all? Because I think from a football standpoint, I'm not sure what more you could have done after those first two seasons where you were 3-19 the first two seasons. After that, you finished at 76-76. So you really turned your program into a pretty successful program.
There's a lot that plays into that. And, as far as asking what, I didn't get to know Steve. He seems like a nice enough guy, seemed like a nice enough guy, but I didn't get to spend enough time with him, to know what he was thinking or what he wasn't thinking. I'm sure, I'll be honest, intelligently, it had something to do with my contract.
Yeah.
And my contract had this, I was getting paid pretty well for our level. And to be honest, like, if he wanted it to be a discussion, I would have let it.
Yeah.
I could have easily walked away from another 100 grand in my contract and just say, all right, now turn around and put this into the program instead.
Yeah.
I don't need that now. My kids are already through school. Like, I don't need that. So that could have been a conversation, but was never presented. And to be honest, Gary, and go back to what Gary, there's a little relief there. There is that, there was a lot that we had done a lot. We had built a lot, and I'm proud of some of the stuff we had done. And in the last couple of years, it kind of got chipped away. And it's what happens. But when I'm the thing that is the consistent thing in leadership, but there's so many different presidents and ADs. There's a constantly convincing them that what we're doing is, despite the success we've had, what we're doing is the thing we should be doing. And that when familiarity breeds contempt. You stay anywhere long enough, you're going to find enough people that. What a buddy of mine said. He said, "Oh, Steve Spurrier said this." He said, "You lose 10% of the people that love you every year." I got this from his son. He said, "So you were there for what, 14 years?"
Right.
He goes, "So they've been hating you for the last 4 years." Nobody. And I'm like, by your math, yeah. So, I wish him well moving forward. I really do. I'm going to root for him.
Gary, go ahead.
So, Coach, if it would be reasonable that you would need a little bit of a separation from the program after, something like this happens, my question is, are you going to go to any Towson football games this year?
That is, it's only come up in conversation once because my brother is the associate head coach and offense coordinator at Albany. And I know that we've talked in the schedule that they play at Towson. And then there was a big conversation of where I would sit.
Okay.
And evidently there's a whole bunch of politics that are involved in this. And I said, I don't know. I want to see where my son's playing that weekend before we have a discussion about it. So Gary, I love the question. I can't give you a yes or no. I don't know. Am I overly excited about that concept? No, I don't know if I'm ready to just be a fan in that stadium yet. I've spent too much of me there.
Rob, Gary and I have known you for a good while, and you've always impressed me on your ability to communicate. Is broadcasting something that plays around in your head, or do you think? I mean, it should, because somebody like Brian Billick made a nice living after his coaching days in analyzing the sport. Is it something that's tossed around in your head, or nobody's ever mentioned that to you?
jokes around my house is I have a face made for radio. So, while I might have some knowledge and I can communicate, I don't know. Mark Viviano said the exact same thing to me, is I should think about getting into broadcasting.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm ready to be done yet. If the right opportunity was presented, with the right people, I think I could find that interesting and fun.
So let me flip the other table. Seeing that you were at your alma mater where everything is in your favor, and after 13 years now as head coach, it's over. Do you think you could go to a program that's on par with Towson and do as good a job or better at a place that they don't know you, you don't know them? Or would the lure be more to go back to pure coaching at the high school level? Which of those two ideas float your boat more?
Let's say, because of my knowledge of the high school game and the experiences that my dad had from the 70s in his career all the way until when he retired, it would have to be a very special circumstance to go back and coach high school ball, only because of the landmines that come with that. And I'll just say it out loud. Now that I don't have a team, no, that's just unreasonable, unknowledgeable ridiculousness of some parents. Steals the joy from me. It steals the joy from the kids. And to be honest, it just hurts the game in the long run. So no, as far as it's football. I could take a job. It doesn't matter. Like, I've recruited everywhere in the country. I've been everywhere in the country. And I've seen the benefits of each individual place. Each job's a little bit different. Take football out of it. If you take blank job in blank state, and now you take a similar job in a different company, each job needs something different, and you have to acknowledge what that is and need the skill set to be able to provide it. And under the guise of football. So yeah, I think a good football coach can coach football anywhere. I think you have to be a pretty smart guy so you can evaluate the people in the area which you would be, the conference in which you would be in, and what style of football you would need to play to be successful there based on where you live and have a chance to win. And you have to have a very serious and honest conversation with your administration and your base. Do you want to try and win the national championship, or do you just want to put some people in the seats and win some games? Because it's a very different tact. And everybody says, "Oh, we want to win the national championship." Trust me, it's not that hard to win football games and put some people in the stands. That can be done. What's really hard to do is get to the national championship and win the damn thing. And that takes it's different. And anybody that says it isn't doesn't do what we do for a living. So I stand on my high horse there. Sorry. So yeah, anywhere I stand, it's ball. And to be honest, I'm ready. Like, I'm grateful for where I have been and the experience I've had, and the people I've been with, the coaches I've had, their families, their kids. They're amazing. The players that are there now, the players that I had the opportunity to sell my soul to, better for worse.
Let me just jump in.
Sorry,
Did you hear from any ex-players of yours?
Yes.
Enough that filled the cup that said,
the cup,
I made a difference with a lot of kids.
The cup runneth over. And you do this for as long, from a coach's perspective, and you say any teacher's perspective, you know who you remember? You don't remember your great students. Everybody remembers your great students. Remembers your great players. Like Dan Orlovsky's on TV. That's great. Everybody remembers them. It's the one you remember the losses. You remember the ones that you thought you didn't get to. And those are the only ones that you really remember. And those are the ones that hurt. And what I've come to find out, being elder years, I guess, and the experience, is that the seeds that you plant don't grow always within your vision and within the time that you're around. Mm-hmm. I've been lucky enough to find a bunch of kids on the back end of this, especially now that I'm done there, for them to come back to reach out to me like, look, I know it wasn't great when I was there, but you need to know where I am now. And I am this because of the experiences I had with the coaches I was with at Towson. You guys helped make that happen. You made this happen for me. And I just, that's
and more times than not, that's not that they're now playing pro football or something. Made them into successes.
Like Darius, Victor, and I text all, like, whenever, you know what I mean? Like, he's killing it. I'm so proud of these kids. all the way there. Mine's still up in Canada playing defensive end. I think Frank Belcher's finally done playing. And no, I'm talking about a guy who kicked off the team who's probably one of the best law enforcement agents on the planet right now, period. And he's like, I'm so proud of who I am, what I do, and what I become. And this happened because you were the first coach to ever stand up and tell me the truth and say no. You wouldn't let me get away with it anymore. And you finally gave me consequences, and I had to change my life.
That's great.
There is no other reason to do this than to either change or improve or better a young person's life through the game of football. That's it. The rest is just for show. It is. The show is fun. But the thing that warms your heart when you're older and you're sitting, man, it's that.
Gary, you got a couple more?
Yeah,
And we'll wrap
Rob,
things up with Coach Ambrose.
So you've already established two things, Rob. Number one, you still need to work. And number two, it's not going to be at the high school level. So it's going to be at the college level or above, right? Question is, and you said this in an interview with Pressbox months ago, that one of the blessings you've had in your life was being able to raise your family in one house.
Mm-hmm.
So the question is, how difficult would it be for you to move somewhere? And if you did that, what are the characteristics of a program that you think would be a good fit for you?
Well, the first time we did this, moving is not an issue for me. I was born, as we discussed earlier, I was born in Chicago, but grew up in Maryland, but I've been all over, and I enjoy traveling. I enjoy different parts of the country and the people that live there. And when we went to Connecticut, Grace was a baby. And the whole concept was basically my wife liked the idea of being a mom way more than she liked the idea of working. Not that there's anything wrong with it. And she's very successful and still is now. But at that period in time, she wanted to be a mom, and she didn't want to work full time. And being a coach at Towson, wasn't going to get that done. And being a head coach at Catholic wasn't getting it done either. So I ended up at UConn because that was what the family needed. I would like, now my kids are going to be off doing their thing wherever they are, and they're going to find us wherever we are. Mel says I can't go out of the country because it's too far for the kids to travel, so I won't be coaching in a foreign country. But as far as doesn't matter anymore, really. I've been to so many towns, and I've seen so many good things about so many towns, so many football towns, whether it be college or pro, all across America. Come on, let's go. It's football. Let's go.
So on your LinkedIn page, it says unemployed at the moment, right?
Give me an option. Yeah.
Yeah. How are you going to go, or how active are you now in looking for something? I mean, football season is about to start, so I'm assuming not now, right? So kind of what's the plan? Like when do you want to get active again to get back in?
You're right. Like the way our calendar works, sad to say this, but the only way anybody gets jobs this time of year basically is because somebody did something bad.
Right.
And I really don't want to be involved in any part of that. I've been around enough to know a lot of people, especially like the search firms that, kind of run and drive, who goes where and what. I know a lot of presidents and ADs, or at least people that do. And I'm sure that'll be a conversation moving forward. There we go. What did I tell you? I told you there'd be a dog somewhere.
I didn't hear a dog.
I heard a little bit.
I didn't.
There's been a conversation or two about possibly calling a game or two for some entity here and there in the fall, which that'd be neat.
Yeah.
But nothing's really going to kick back up until the season gets closer to the end. And we'll see. There's still some stuff. There's analyst jobs that exist out there for guys that need some help. And, I'd certainly take that phone call, I guess. But this is going to be an interesting fall. I've been doing this. One of my earliest memories, my full-time, is being about four years old in a football game.
Well, one thing I think we'll do this fall or late in August, we're going to grab a lunch with you one day when you're back in town. We'd love to do that. Let me ask you a question. I always hear when a coach is sort of out of work that they end up being invited to go somewhere to just observe.
Mm-hmm.
Are you friendly enough? Does that have to be a call that comes to you from somebody, or would you pick up the phone and call Mike Loxley and say, hey, I just want to come out and watch the practice and keep my head active and,
I
Is
spent,
that something that could
yeah,
happen?
sure, and that happened in the spring. It happened in the spring. I was in.
Okay,
I spent time with the USFL teams in Birmingham. I was at
Okay.
Virginia Tech. Tyler Bowen's the offense coordinator there. He was our tight end coach at one point with his first full-time job at Towson. I went to Wake with Dave Clawson and his guys, you know, a great group of coaches that have been coaching together for years, and they're amazing. So, you know, and everybody, you know, tell me what you think. Everybody's practice, at least the good guys, the
Yeah.
good programs, everybody's practice is pretty much run the same. It's kind of funny that the good stuff stays the good stuff no matter where you go. And then, you know, I'd probably reach out to John pretty soon. Everybody's camp is opening up soon.
Yep.
Be honest, I'm going to go to Albany, see my brother,
Yep.
practice. Coach Gattuso has been so kind enough to let me do that. And I've been in touch with the commissioner too about some stuff during the season. Maybe when he needs help.
All right.
He needs
Rob-
a little football coach's input.
Rob, we appreciate it. We gave you some time because I offered you the chance to come on right when this was raw, and you said, I need a little time.
Appreciate
And it
that.
went a little further than I wanted it to, but all of a sudden I thought, hey, football's starting. Let's talk to Rob Ambrose. We really appreciate your coming on and answering some difficult questions, you know, not the easy stuff. And we've been friends through the good times, and we're friends through this. And you're going to get through this and do fine.
Thank
You really will, Rob. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for your time. I'll be back, not Monday. I'll be back next Tuesday with Ross Grimsley and Luke Jackson. We'll be talking at 4:00 on Tuesday. The trade deadline in Major League Baseball is at 4:00 on Tuesday. For Rob Ambrose, Gary Stein, I'm Stan the Fan, and we'll talk to you down the road pretty soon. Bye.